My own manager closes the door when she has me on speakerphone. Be advised. Hey y'all, I'm Jenn. I'm from Oakland and I'm an androgynous, black, lesbian feminist and a lover of all black people.
This is Daren. I'm an asexual novelist, researcher, and bona fide comic book fanatic from the widest part of Southern California.
Orange County. We're queer millennials with 3 kids and nearly 20 years of marriage.
This is a podcast about the realities of blackness, adulting, and relationships.
This is That Black Couple. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, happy December.
We've returned.
We're here and we're queer and it's December.
Okay.
Shut up.
It rhymes, so it works. We're going to accept it.
The other day I was kind of mad because somebody said their name rhymed with something and it didn't because it had like Mac at the front of it. So it was like Enzy and their name was Mackenzie. And I'm like, that's not rhymes with. Like Frenzy and Mackenzie don't rhyme.
Y'all, the educational system in this country is failing.
We'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, I just want to tell you people, Mackenzie and Frenzy don't rhyme.
No, they don't.
They just end with the same sound. Anyway, hi everyone, it's us. This is episode 8 of season 7 of That Black Couple. I'm drinking water.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and I also have been drinking a lot of kombucha.
Mm-hmm.
I've been drinking that all year, trying to get my gut healthy because I'm 40 now.
You're distinguished now.
I'm different. I am changing. Ain't that what she said?
That's what Jennifer Hudson sang, yes.
I'm changing. That's what I'm doing. I'm changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been drinking that clean your gut out poo tea. That's been doing some things. Listen,
it don't do you like it do me.
Because me and my gut have a better relationship than you and your gut.
No, it's the difference. I think me and my gut have a very great relationship, so we don't need no assistance.
No, I don't think so. I think your gut does whatever your gut wants to do, and you just have to go along with it.
But when we get assisted, it's like we could have gone without.
Me and my gut have a very close relationship, and that's why she don't be embarrassing me. Anyway, like I said, this is episode 8 of season 7 of That Black Couple. Today we are talking about the South, the American South, and I like to call this salt grits versus sugar grits. You know?
Y'all, don't start off angry, okay?
Please don't. Listen to us all the way through. Go with us on this. Grab your water or your kombucha or something that will cleanse your gut, your nice gut poo tea. Have a seat. This is That Black Couple. I'm Jenn.
I'm Daren.
Before we get started, make sure you follow us on Threads and Instagram at That BLK Couple, on Facebook at That Black Couple, and look us up on the internets at www.thatblackcouple.com.
And y'all, go stream these episodes.
Please.
Listen once. Listen twice.
Share it.
Listen thrice.
Subscribe.
Tell your family and friends about it.
Play it again.
We're going to the holiday season. Share. Be merry.
Subscribe on Substack.
All those things. Because we're everywhere. I'm telling you, the one thing we keep talking about is like, people have these thoughts and these questions and they're like, how can I get the answer?
Yeah.
Where do I find that thing? And there's this great invention.
Yeah.
It's called an internet search.
Yeah.
And like Google's the big one. And you just go to Google and you type it in. So if you're like, dang, I really wanted to tell my friends about That Black Couple, but I don't remember the link. How do I do it? You just go to Google, and a lot of times you can just like talk into your phone or something, and you don't have to type the words.
That's right.
And it'll go and it'll show it for you, and then you can just click like a single send button to share.
Correct.
And they got it.
And even Google has AI now, so you can put the words in, and Google's AI will go, I think you mean this.
Mm-hmm. You can misspell it,
and it'd be like, let's fix it for you.
Do that for me today, please.
Yeah, please.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you.
And and I do too. And I'm really excited about this episode. As two Western folks, which I guess we get counted as Northerners. I get called a Northerner all the time, which is kind of weird. I don't understand it, but as two Western folks from Cali, I'm excited to talk about the South.
I know you've been looking forward to this.
I have.
For a long time.
It's a long time coming.
And I think it's going to be real interesting.
All right, well, let's get started. First things first. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay, so how we going to come into this conversation is through a weird angle. Go with us on it. But we're going to talk about climate change. Okay, so really oddly, the other day in Syracuse, it was 55 degrees outside. It was beautiful.
It was great.
The sun was shining. I was like, we could take the puppy on a walk. This is nice. That's weird because it's December. And that's just not supposed to happen. And I was talking to a friend in Atlanta, and they was like, yeah, it's 67 degrees down here. And I said, oh no, we're cooked. Like literally, we're cooked. And we had talked about this episode a few months ago, back when I was visiting Spelman and Georgia State, because we're talking about the hurricanes that had happened. Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. They were back to back. Did you want to get some data on that, Daren, or you want me to do it?
No, you can just roll along.
Okay.
Roll along.
So essentially, when we were talking about this back in September and October, the hurricanes that were landing in the southern region of the United States were some of like the most incredible hurricanes to ever hit the Atlantic Ocean in history at the same time. And the way that they were approaching land looked like they might wipe out significant portions of Florida. And they did do a lot of damage. And people were scared, but they kind of just stopped talking about it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And it was really strange to me talking to people who were down there, because they're like, yeah, power went out at the hospital, and, you know, I don't know if I'm able to go to work, and, you know, we were sitting around kind of scared because we ain't got no lights. And I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? This is very, very strange. And so when I went down there to visit, you know, it was really nice to be in the South and to be amongst, you know, Southern folks. But it just made me think about how we take the South so for granted, but how so much of USCN culture originates in the South.
Yeah, it does.
And it made me think about them damn grits. I gave a whole talk at Spelman in October, and I called it salt grits versus sugar grits. And I was so motivated because I woke up one morning in this beautiful hotel in Atlanta, and I ordered some breakfast, and them grits came. Oh my God. And listen, I DoorDashed them to my room, and so I was like, oh, these grits might don't make it. And it's something about grits in the South. Like they're like a meal by themselves.
Hit different.
And they hold. Like even when they get a little, you know, firm, even when they turn into like a little bit of a brick, they still tasty. And you kind of eat them like you just eat them differently at different stages. Like, you know what I'm saying? Them salt grits, they just hit different. And I was sitting there and I'm like, these are the best damn grits I've ever had in my life. I've never had grits so well made as I've had in the South.
From DoorDash. In Atlanta,
in little random towns in Maryland. You know, when I've been in New Orleans, like when I have grits in the South, they just taste different. And as a lifelong sugar grits nigga from California, it has been disturbing my spirit. And so that's what we're coming at this talking about, is we came to this through the conversation on climate change and how scary that is. Because if we were to see the impacts of hurricanes and of these major cataclysmic weather catastrophes, they would likely start in the South in the U.S. But also, there are so many beautiful, incredible things about the South that make us inherently who we are, and yet we just disregard them as if they don't exist.
Well, but I think it's also a little bit of like holding on to your culture.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm kind of happy that we don't all have all the things that are in the South. I'm kind of happy that when you go to the South, it hit a little different, it feel a little different, things work a little different. You know, I'm glad that they've been able to hold on through all the weather, through, you know, terrible government policies, through all of the terrible things that have happened since the birth of this country. I'm glad that the South has kind of held on to its nest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like gentrification is actively trying to wipe that out.
It's trying.
And there's a lot of people who are now relocating to the South from northern cities, from western cities, a lot of people who want to retire there. And a lot of people who are Black who are now saying, I grew up in Washington State. I grew up in Chicago, whatever. And I want to live in the South now. I want to live in Texas. I want to live in Georgia. I want to move to Alabama or whatever. I think what's interesting to me about it is that, being there as someone who grew up in California, where we're ethnocentric. It's like, we think we're the best, which is just not true. Like, whatever. Anyway, I ain't gonna talk about California right
Love you, Cali.
Love you, Cali, but it's ghetto. It's ashy and has mudslides and earthquakes. And I think, you grow up there and you're taught kind of implicitly that you live in the best place. And then you travel for the first time to New York and you're like, wait. And then you travel to DC and you're like, hold on. And then you go to Houston and you're like, this food is immaculate, right? Like, you go to all these different places and you're like, why y'all been lying this whole time? And that's kind of how I feel now when I've been visiting the South on this book tour this year. I feel like I've been lied to. So many of the Black women I wrote about in my book are from the South. Mm-hmm. My soror Nikki Giovanni, who just passed away, is also from the South. Like Ida B. Wells from the South, Angela Davis from the South. And if they ain't from the South, most of them from the Midwest. So they're just one generation, removed from the South. Bell Hooks and Toni Morrison from the Midwest. Them niggas is from, somebody came from the South. You know what I'm saying? And I just wish we gave them Southern people more credit.
We're going to do it today, though.
Yeah.
This podcast is supported by generous donations from our patrons and listeners. Become a supporter today by heading to www.patreon.com/colorcombosmedia.
You can stream the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. When you listen, please consider hitting that heart button, sharing, giving us a 5-star rating, and leaving some dope comments. This helps us with our page rankings and gets more listeners for the show. Thank you so much.
All right, we're back.
We are back.
And it's time for the conversation.
Okay, let's do it.
And I'm thinking about this conversation, I feel like this is kind of like an homage to the South.
Okay.
And the trials that it's been through, and how it has persevered through all of those trials. Because honestly, the South has been through a lot. That's where slavery was born, right? So as you could imagine, that's where a lot of more terrible things continue to occur.
Yeah.
When you think about the South, you think about it being like a traditionally conservative area.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans, a lot of religious conservatives. A lot of really kind of pious types of people. You think about like guns and God, and you think about a lot of farming in the South. Yeah, I mean those are the types of things that you think about when you think about the South, right? I think about a lot of just like open space. I think about Southern draws. I think about, big takeout plates. It's kind of its own type of a place that I don't think you can really describe it in one word, but you talk about these specific things and it gives you that Southern feel.
Yeah.
But also when you think about the South, you have to think about poverty.
Yeah.
It has a really, really high concentration of residents that are in poverty.
Yeah.
These residents in these communities that they live in, they have some of the lowest literacy scores in the U.S. The communities, when I was looking this up, Holmes County, Mississippi, Williamsburg, South Carolina, those are two of the most economically disadvantaged regions in the country.
Wow.
Right. So that's the other thing that I always feel it's like a hand in hand thing. Like even when we talk about the South in positive ways, like we can't overlook the fact that there's a lot that is almost inherently wrong with the South, and that has been inherently wrong for a long time and hasn't necessarily really gotten any better. I don't know.
I feel like I want to reframe that.
I would appreciate a reframe.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say that it is inherently wrong with the South. I just think that there are a lot of ways in which the American South is still very rooted in the fundamental founding principles and bases that are at the heart of the United States government and structure, right? I think that underlying, we'll talk about this more, but underlying what you're describing is, deep historic, commitments to racism and to misogyny and to the exploitation of indigenous and black and brown folks, and to systems that were meant to make the wealthiest white people wealthier. And so it's not that there's something wrong with the South. It's just that it's a haven for those types of white folk who find camaraderie in cruelty. And
those things hang around.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this. I don't know the history like you know the history, because you really be knowing dates and facts and figures and everything. I got to look everything up. You be doing it off dome. But like I said, right? You think about the legacy of slavery, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there were slaves. They were enslaved peoples.
Yeah.
And then
millions.
Then they were freed from slavery.
Yeah.
But then once they were freed, there were anti-literacy laws.
Yeah.
That made it illegal for people to read or write.
Even if some of them weren't even told they were free. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was between 1740 and 1834. You could even teach enslaved people or free people of color to read or write during that time.
Right.
Right. And so again, I always, when we do like historical stuff, I always like to couch it to say, that's not that long ago.
It's really not.
That's not that many generations ago, when it was illegal for you to not even just to know how to read or write, or for you to even try to teach someone how to read or write.
My grandmother was alive.
Right. Like that's not that long ago.
No, it's not.
Right. And then it's the legacy of that. Right. So the other thing I think about in this type of a conversation is that, there was the migration. There was a lot of people that left the South for those types of reasons. They left for more opportunities. They left for chance for advancement. Right. And so you think about the people that left, obviously they still faced a lot of shit, but they had better opportunities and better access to things. Yeah. Right. But then you think about the people that stayed, right? Realistically, those people were already set behind. Yeah. And so unless there's a real serious investment in bringing people up to catch them up with everyone else, right? It's not, it's that same legacy that has not been corrected, right? There are clusters of low literacy counties along the Mississippi River in Western Alabama, from Georgia all the way up through the Carolinas, right? It's not like one pocket or one town or, one city. It's clusters of counties that have these low literacy issues, right? And that's one of the things that it still makes me very, very angry that we live in this country and we talk about how advanced we are and how great we are and we're the leaders of the free world and all of these great things, but we still have not, and we refuse to reckon with the crimes of our own past. Yeah.
And I just want to clarify something. I just said my grandmother's alive, and I was trying to say my grandmother was alive at the start of the Great Migration. Yes. Not that she was alive between 1740 and 1834 when the anti-literacy laws were in place.
Be a miracle.
But I was bringing that up to say, I think what you're saying is so important because, for both of us growing up in California, I think a lot of us were raised with these stereotypes about the American South, and specifically around Black folk in the South. A lot of stereotypes around literacy and these kind of culture of poverty versus cycle of poverty claims, right? So culture of poverty, cycle of poverty comes from Daniel Moynihan's report on Black America that he published in 1965 at the guidance of the U.S. president. And he published this as he thought to help Black Americans. But in that report, he essentially blamed Black women's uteruses for the degradation of Black communities and for what he saw as a disintegration of the Black family. And what he did not take into account was that perhaps some of these long-held anti-Black racist beliefs and structural and institutional processes that had made it harder for Blacks to come up from slavery may still be at play. And so this is the culture of poverty argument, that these individuals just don't have the drive and the desire and the capacity to come up out of their conditions. But the cycle of poverty theory, which is actually true and makes sense, says no, it's actually the systems that are at play, right? When you free people from slavery and say, well, you still can't learn how to read, that's a cycle of institutional power being enforced on a vulnerable population of people who will not be able to care for themselves and then have to become dependent on someone else, right?
And it's a trap. That's the plan.
It's a trap. And that's why most of the folks who were freed ended up becoming sharecroppers. Sharecroppers worked in the process of what was called debt peonage. And debt peonage was when you essentially worked on the same plantation that you were once enslaved on, and you did the same work, but now you're being paid literally sometimes nothing for it, but you couldn't read anyway. So you didn't know what contracts you were signing. You couldn't count the money. Yep. And meanwhile, there are white people working right alongside you who are being paid properly and who are watching this happen, right? That is a system. That is a process. That is a larger structure that is built around the idea that Black folk are inherently inferior. And I think that's what makes me angry, right? When I think about how growing up, I was told these stories about Black folk in the South and about the South. And it was kind of like, oh, the Confederacy didn't win, but they couldn't deal with it. And so they got mad. And then it was like, and Black people not doing well. And I'm like, there's so much in between there that I don't feel like I was told. Like, people would say Jim Crow, but they didn't tell you what Jim Crow really was. I didn't understand sharecropping and debt peonage until I was into adulthood. I was in my 20s reading a book called Slavery by Another Name. That's how I learned about it. You know, it was vocational reading. It wasn't in a classroom. Yeah. And so that's why you hear people say things like, well, why don't people just move? Well, why don't people just pick up and just go do something else? Because they don't understand that these systems and institutions work together to keep people where they are. Right. That's the whole point. And so I think, you know, part of this episode is really a thank you, right, to Black Southern folk who have endured this shit all this time. You know, we are lucky that our ancestors and elders had the ability and the wealth to relocate from the South after slavery, right? That is a blessing and a gift, right? But it doesn't make us special. And it doesn't mean that somehow because we grew up in California, or some of us grew up in, you know, the North, you know, Midwest, in cities like Chicago or Madison, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? That somehow, you know, y'all are better because you got to be away from that type of racism. All of these systems work together, including the myth making and retelling of history that had us believing that the real problem was Black folk in the South and not the white folk and the systems that work together to put them there. It's
really disheartening because it's the same thing that I feel like we're always talking about. It's like these systems that are put in place intentionally to divide us. Yeah. Right. It's the same idea of like, I work in the house and you work in the fields.
It is.
I live in the North and you live in the South. Yeah. Right. It's these same types of ideas of like, this makes me better than you.
Salt grit versus sugar grits. Let me just tell you, I want to bring it back to that, y'all. We got to stop fighting over these salt grits versus these sugar grits. I'm just saying.
You know, do you want to just have this conversation?
It's not a conversation because I think that salt grits is better now. But I'm going to still eat sugar grits. To me, it's not even a conversation.
To me, I'ma just be plain about it, because
grits is good.
Grits is good, and honestly, I didn't even eat grits until you had me eat grits. Yeah. Like, I didn't even grow up on grits.
I did.
Right, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is all right. It's you know, it's whatever. It's good. But when you have a Southern grit,
they're different.
I was like, what are the dimensions of flavor?
But also,
here?
What are they doing to
it? And
the
texture.
Like, who's whispering into them?
But it's one of those things. To me, it's like they're from the land.
They're from the land.
Like, and a lot of times, honestly, when you're not living in the South,
yep,
you getting some kind of, you know, processed grit.
Yep.
That, to be honest and to be fair to us Northerners, you kind of need some sugar.
That's right.
To give that thing some life.
That's right. That's what I said in my talk. I said, listen, salt enhances, sugar covers. Mm-hmm. Okay? In the North, we putting sugar on shit because we far from our people. Mm-hmm. That's what I fundamentally believe. I think the further you get away from your people, the more sugar you got to use. Because you got to cover up that nasty ass flavor.
Them Southern grits,
they different.
The sugar don't even make sense.
It don't make sense. I would never.
And it wasn't until I had them Southern grits when I realized, oh, that's why y'all looking at us crazy.
That's why.
Because they're like, why the hell would I ever put sugar on this?
Because they ain't never had the bland shit that we eat in the North.
And they would eat it and they would throw it up.
That's right.
They'd be like, what is this?
They would be like,
what is this trash?
They would spit it right out.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm also saying too. Like, there's a certain quality to the U.S. South. There's something about being there as a Black person, right? Every time I land in a Southern city, I feel ancestors. I feel my people inherently. And I've never been to the continent. I've never been to Africa. And I really want to. I don't know which country there makes sense for me, right? And that's part of why I'm confused about going. Like, do I go to Accra? Do I go to Ghana? Where do I go? I don't know where I go, right? Do I go to South Africa? Do I go to Nigeria? Like, I don't know where my people there came from. But I do know that here, that there is something that tethers me to other Black people on this land. And I've felt that most acutely in Georgia. I felt it in Texas, where my people are from. And I felt it in North Carolina. I felt it in South Carolina. I felt it in New Orleans. I don't know what that is. But I understand why people feel like they're going home when they move to the South. I understand why they feel that way. And I understand why Southern Black people are so defensive when they hear people talking shit about the South. Right? I don't feel that kind of defense of California. I don't. I don't give a shit if you like California.
I mean, California has a lot of merits.
Sure.
And if you hate In-N-Out Burger, that's fine. I'm gonna eat it and I'm gonna enjoy that shit. Right. But like, yeah, there's like a Southern pride.
Right.
There's I don't even know. It's like a heritage.
It is.
That it's like.
And it's not the white version. We
holding on to what we got and we protecting it.
It's not the white version that's rooted in racism and bigotry, right? And I'll say this. I will say, as an Oakland nigga, I do have a certain pride and heritage with regard to Oakland, right? Like, don't talk about my city, right? Like, don't. Hey, listen, shut the fuck up, right? But it still, to me, is not the same as Southern Black folk. And I understand why. And I think now that I've spent more time there, you know, I get it. And I just want us to care more.
I think we can.
And I think we should.
I think we can, but I think it really takes people getting over their own ignorance.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been one thing I've been thinking about a lot over this entire year, is how many things we just take because someone said it one time, or we saw one thing one time, we saw a picture, or we saw whatever it is.
Yeah. And
we just take that to be fact, and we don't even start to scratch the surface.
Right.
Right. Like, so like all those things we talked about, like, you know, the South has its troubles and its issues just like any place in the entire world. Right. But why is it that we just look down on people
and dispose
from the
of
South?
it? Yeah.
Like, why is that? And why don't we ever interrogate that?
Right.
Right. And you talked about all of these great, amazing, wonderful women that have done so much and contributed so much to the world.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, I mean, the entire civil rights movement
South
was in the South.
From the South. Right? Yeah.
And so
Ida B. Wells, the South.
How dare we?
Zora Hurston, the South.
We're gonna look down on the South as if these are like country bumpkins,
right?
Who can't read or write
from a different generation.
And you know, they don't have any teeth, or they don't have any meaning or worth or merit. Like, they don't have brains in their heads.
And that's
weird.
To me, that's us doing the same thing that folks did to enslaved Black folks and to newly free Black folks. It's just, to me, that's just complicity in the same narratives and myth making around Blackness that have always harmed us and divided us.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And it's hard for me to, after this year and thinking about, wow, almost every woman in that book I wrote about is from the South, and almost every Black freedom fighter and writer that I admire is from the South. And thinking about that and realizing ain't none of them niggas from California. Mm-mm. Like, who's from California? Someone said, who's from California? I said, I guess me. I guess me.
I mean, we owe the Black Panther Party to Oakland.
I'm talking about Black women, though.
Yeah, but
yeah, I know it's
the list is
because
short.
Most of the people who were in the Black Panther Party who were Black women they were transplants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I say all that to say, put some respect on that name.
You can find my mom and dad, aka That Black Couple, on the web at thatblackcouple.com. That Black Couple is owned and operated by Color Combos Media. If you would like to help fund our content, sign up at www.patreon.com/colorcombosmedia. Please consider giving us $5 or $10 per month to help us build our platform and grow our organization. You can also give one-time donations at www.paypal.me/colorcombosmedia. All donations are welcome.
And we're back.
We are back.
And this has been a great episode.
Of course, it's us.
As you claim. And I kind of want to bring it back to grits again. Just for a little bit.
You're such a tourist. Let's talk about food once more.
I love food.
Some of the best food in the countries in the South, and I don't understand how we keep having these conversations about the best food cities, and there's always places in the North and the Midwest, and I'd be like,
well, it's because those places have like all this fine,
whatever,
high palate dining type stuff. So where the people who have been given the role of deciding what's the best in cuisine, right? They're gonna pick those places.
Child, listen.
But I'm still mad. I'm still mad at you.
But that biscuit?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about it just now. That biscuit was so good.
Because here's the thing, right? Like, we live in Syracuse and the food here ain't great. Okay. It's just not good.
It's not good. It's nowhere near great.
But the thing about it is, like, if I were to be like, you know what, I want to eat like the people in the South, right? I would have to ship things from the South.
Correct. Ingredients,
up here,
yes.
And it would become a very expensive endeavor.
That's correct.
Just to have the raw ingredients to make the stuff.
That's correct.
Never mind, do I have that cast iron that's been seasoning for the last 300 years?
That's right.
That's
right.
You'd have to have that.
And you need the auntie arms and elbows.
Yeah, you have to have all those things to get it to taste the way it's supposed to.
Correct.
Meanwhile, you were in Atlanta and you got DoorDash.
Yeah,
and they brought you an overflowing takeout plate.
They did.
And you had some of the best food you've had in your whole life.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever eaten like that really for breakfast now.
And it cost like $10 or something.
Yeah,
it wasn't even expensive.
No, it was ridiculous. Ooh, it was so good. I had cheese grits too.
I was so mad. And I'm still mad.
I tried to save you that biscuit.
But it didn't want to leave the South. It didn't want to hold.
I tried.
Once you left the South, it crumbled.
I tried my best, but I don't know what they're putting in the biscuits in Atlanta. I don't know who did that. I couldn't do it. It was, I don't know how to describe it. I was overcome. And they sent me with like this apple butter jelly thing.
You didn't tell me it was apple butter.
Sorry.
I love an apple butter on a biscuit.
Me too. Sorry. I'm sorry.
But I bring that up.
Yes.
All just to say, right, like, there are things that you can't get out the South.
You can't.
They just not the same.
They don't taste the same.
They're not going to be fresh.
It's like when you go somewhere and they say it's a Chicago hot dog, but once you live in Chicago and you've had a Chicago hot dog in Chicago,
oh my God,
you can't go anywhere else and eat a Chicago dog. It don't taste the same outside of Chicago.
Listen, I've eaten Chicago dogs across the entire country.
And they're lying.
I've been disappointed every time.
Because they're liars. But
it's not even that they're liars, because they will follow the recipe to the T.
Yeah, but they're liars.
They will ship in the stuff.
You know why? It's not Chicago.
It's not Chicago. The hot dog didn't seep and stew in the liquids.
There's something about the land in Chicago. It just emanates into the hot dog and into the relish and into the onions and into the bun and the little celery salt.
And you got to get it in Chicago.
You got to get it in Chicago.
But the South, you got to get some grains.
And the thing about the South that gets me is that different places got different stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't nothing like a char-grilled oyster in New Orleans. It's just, I don't know who did that. I don't know why they did it. But I'm never going to eat that anywhere else and have it taste right.
It won't.
It won't taste right. It won't taste the same. It won't taste the same. I had gumbo in South Carolina, and I don't think I'm ever going to eat a gumbo like that again.
You won't.
I'll have to go to that exact same place and eat that gumbo. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. As a Californian, I feel away. I'm just hoping, this is all I gotta say. This is what I'm gonna say. I'm hoping that whatever woman or gender expansive person I fall in love with, I hope that they are from the South. I hope they live down there. I hope I got
Me too.
Oh, shut up. This is not about you. I want a reason for us to have to go down there regularly. I mean, listen, in Atlanta, that's the busiest airport in the world. I can make it. I can make it for love and some biscuits. I'm just saying.
Listen, I don't gotta be there as long as you.
I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back.
Some ribs. Some
ribs. That's not from the. That's from Tennessee.
That's the South. It's different areas of the South. That's true. And that's exactly what we're saying. Depending on where you go in the South, they got their things. If you in Tennessee, there's barbecue. If you in Texas, it's a different barbecue.
I know. That's if you in South Carolina, banging. It's a different barbecue. If you in St. Louis, it's a different barbecue.
How they do the same food that many different ways and they're all good?
I hate it here. I mean, in Syracuse, I hate it here. But just, if you're in the South and you hear this, call me.
Ship us a plate, please.
Please.
Or 5.
And we don't have no dietary restrictions or allergies.
None. Nope. Even if I know it's gonna not agree with my gut, I'm gonna eat it anyway.
I'll risk it today. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow me will be okay with it. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, or you just want to tell us how great we are, email us at thatblkcouple@gmail.com. Bye.